Hello and welcome. It's Friday, and I'm going to do another season report card. I'm up to Adam Cerra. Feeling pretty good today. How good was it watching? Oh, that was good watching Richmond get beat last night and the manner in which they got beat. Been, I've been, oh, I've just been on top of the world. I shouldn't be like that considering our season finished the way it did, but I couldn't happen to a better football team or a worse mob than Richmond. Their supporters. Fuck are we? Oh, God, that was funny last night. And Danaher did it to him. Chicken Danaher. Oh, anyway, Adam Sherritt, let's get on with it. Compose yourself. Don't get involved in banter. All right, Adam Sherritt, 22 years of age, will be 23 next month. Yeah, still very young. Nearly notched up 100 games. He's on 94. We know 76 of those were with the Fremantle Dockers. 4 seasons there before he came across to us, and he played 18 in 2022. Let's have a look. I think I read some draft notes on Cerra last week, and one of the concerns with him before the 2017 draft, and he was always going to go in the top 10, but one of the concerns was his body. He'd had a number of injuries in his across his 2 or 3 seasons in the NAB League or the TAC at that stage. And they were concerned moving forward with injuries. But you look at his numbers, across those 5 seasons, 21 in his first year, 20, 17, 18 and 18. And I know he had a couple of niggles this year, but that's a bloke that's pretty bloody durable. If you look at that, he's racking him up and his body looks pretty strong. Position midfield, I reckon it's a nice balance in the midfield with Cerra. I think we probably used him more when we had everyone up and going in there, slightly more on the outside. But he can win his own ball. Contract status is with us until the end of 2025. He's in that 2017 draft, which I've spoken about quite a bit. In these player report cards so far, the Lockie O'Brien and Paddy Dow draft. So we now have 5 players on our list who were taken in the top 30 in that draft, right here, right now. But we just have to wait and see if a couple of them will be with us. So we've got Cerra, obviously was taken pick 5 with Fremantle. Dow picked 3 with us. O'Brien picked 10 with us. Fogarty, he was taken, I think, in the mid-20s or 23 or 24. The Cats, he's now with us. And obviously now TDK taken with pick 30. That's 5 players from that draft inside the top 30. We gave up pick 6 and a future third in the trade period last year for Adam Cerra, and Freo used that pick on WA for Jai Miss, who played the 1 game in round 8 against North and kicked 2 goals. It really doesn't mean much now, but we'll keep a close eye on Jai Miss and see how he develops with the Fremantle Dockers. Season snapshot across those 18 games. Played round 1 against Richmond with 30 touches, then missed round 2. Was in the COVID health protocols. He actually tested positive. Came back for round 3 against Hawthorn, and then strung all those games together, and then missed the round 14 and 15 clashes against Richmond and Fremantle with a hamstring injury. Probably came back too early, I reckon. That's the feeling I get, because he returned in round 16 against St Kilda. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But then he was laid out in round 22 against Melbourne with an abductor strain, but returned for the round 23 clash against Collingwood. Statistically, 23 disposals. He averaged across those 18 games before that hamstring injury. He was winning quite a lot more of the ball. Before that, that was up until round 13. He was averaging 25.2, and 3 times he had 30 plus in a game. Clearance is 4.1, which is above average, which, if we're talking about Cerra being more of an outside player, that's pretty good. Pressure acts above average. I reckon that's excellent for a midfielder, 2.6. 4.7 tackles a game above average. Effective disposals, 17.2 above average. Appeared to handball a ball more, particularly early in the season. Not quite sure if that's, was part of the game plan. So the kick to handball ratio, a lot of the time, was more in favour of Cerra handballing. And metres gained, only 336, probably courtesy of handballing the ball, chipping the ball sideways, and that was rated average. Score involvement's average as well, 4.6. I think, for me, if you're looking at Cerra, I think his best games, he may have had bigger numbers and better games, but the ones that stood out for me are the round 1 clash against Richmond and the 2 games against the Pies. And the reason why they stood out is because they were big occasion games against arch rivals and good opposition in front of huge crowds and a tremendous amount of pressure. So round 1 against the Tigers, 72,000. He had 30 disposals, 6 tackles and a goal. Round 11 against the Pies, 80,000. Were there, 30 disposals, a goal and 5 tackles. And then that last game of the year, 27 disposals, 2 goals and 7 tackles in front of a crowd of 88,000. So I think one of the reasons why he left Fremantle was, the big one was to come home to Victoria, but I think he even mentioned that he wanted to play with a big club in front of big crowds. And he stood up. In those games. He was really good in all 3 of those games. I think his worst game was the round 16 clash. I mentioned that before. It felt like he came back too early with that hamstring injury. But the irony of that was, he came back in and played on a wing in that game. He only had the 16 touches, but they were ordinary touches. He was just off. But the irony was that he had his knee heavily strapped. It wasn't his hamstring, it was his knee. And he just did not look right. It was a really ordinary performance. You cut him a little bit of slack, but when you cross the white line, and that was a pretty bloody important game for us, that game against St Kilda, and we were poor early. We were really poor. So, that one really sticks out for me as an ordinary performance by Adam Cerra. The strengths, he's got a lot. He's got a lot going for him, and I'm rapt we picked him up. I really am. Don't know if he's going to get the superstar status. I don't think we necessarily need him to get to superstar status, but I think he's got a lot of strengths that will help us moving forward. I think the one I mentioned before with those 3 games that I mentioned, I just feel like he's a big game performer. And I just wished we could have got through to the finals. And we'll never know. We'll never know until we get that opportunity, because the big games are the finals. But I feel like he's built for September. And that game against the Pies, he was the one in the third quarter that got us going with those couple of goals. And I just think he's got the game. He's tough. He's tackling. He's excellent. His hardness. I didn't realise he was as tough and as hard as he is. And it's not your sort of aggressive in your face toughness. It's just head over the football, tackle hard. I think I don't know. I just think he's got that nice balance between outside mid and inside mid. And I think we're pretty. I don't know, I think we'd be pretty happy with that at the moment. He's got good skills, neat skills. His agility is good. He's relatively smart, uses the ball well. Yeah, I think for me, the weaknesses are the speed. And maybe that's just more of a team thing. We don't have a lot of speed, but he's fairly one-paced. Fairly one-paced. And he doesn't have a massive impact forward of centre. So his scoreboard impact is, 5 goals this season, only 21 across his 94 games. It's an area that he'd probably like to improve because he's an ice kick. And he showed that he can kick multiple goals in a game. And I suppose I'd just like to see him make a little bit more of an impact, a damaging impact. One word for Adam Cerra in season 2022. I thought about this one. I'm going to go steady. And what I mean by steady is reliable, authentic footballer, dependable at this stage. And I think he can be more than that moving forward. But right here, right now, I'm happy with steady and reliable, with a touch of class, obviously. But can he become really more dynamic? 22 years of age, of course he can. And when you look at it, you look at that midfield and what we could also add to it moving forward. Cripps, Kennedy, Hewitt, Walsh and Cerra, it looks like a pretty bloody good mix with Cerra in there. My rating, he had some quiet games. He had that period when he came back from injury where he looked a little bit flat with the rest of the team. So I mark him down on that. But I think it was a really, it was a good first year at the football club. I've given him a 7 out of 10. How do you rate Adam Cerra's year, guys? Let us know in the comments below. And I'll be back over the next couple of days with the report card of Zach Williams, the number 6.